Hey Matt, thanks for sending me your swim video for analysis. The first things I'm looking at are breathing, body balance, rotation, and kick. I look primarily at those 4 things because each one impacts the other. So when it comes to breathing, you want to make sure first that you rotate to breathe, that you're rotating on your hip to breathe, that you're not just turning your head, but that you're turning your chin and your head and your hip and your shoulder in one rotation, and that half your face stays in the water as you rotate to catch that breath. You kind of want to look up and a little bit look back at your shoulder. What you don't want to do is just rotate your head and try to lift. You want to rotate that hip to breathe. The reason that is so important is because that's going to impact your body balance, how much head lift you do versus how much rotation you do to breathe. And also not breathing frequently, trying to breathe maybe every 3rd, 4th, or 5th stroke is helpful. So you can see the connection between breathing and rotation. When it comes to swimming, you're either rotating on your left hip or right hip at all times. The best way to think about rotation is when you enter with your right hand, you rotate on your right hip. When you enter with your left hand, you rotate on your left hip. So you're constantly going from hip to hip. But what's really going on is when you enter with your right hand, you just pushed. It's that underwater pull that drives the hip rotation. Likewise, when you enter with your left hand, the right arm pulled, so that's driving your hip rotation. So breathing, body balance, rotation, and kick. The 2 things that impact your body balance and your alignment, where your ears, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles are aligned together, is your kick and your breathing. We already talked about breathing. Let's talk about kick. You should be kicking slightly from your quads and hip flexors, enough to keep your legs on top of the water and not to make them sink. You want to feel like you're swimming downhill with those legs up. Also, have very flexible ankles will help. So breathing, body balance, kick, rotation. The next things I'm looking at are the 3 main phases of the stroke. Recovery, what's going on with your hand out of the water. You should have your fingertips pointed below your wrist, below your elbow, and due to that rotation, you should be leading with your elbow. Instead of reaching with your hand, you want to lead with that elbow, so then you enter phase 2, entry, fingertips, wrist, elbow. Again, simultaneously, one arm is pulling, one arm is entering, you're rotating, and it's that hip rotation that helps extend your arm underwater instead of reaching flat and shallow without the rotation, and you enter flat, elbow and wrist and hand at the same time. So phase 1 is recovery, phase 2 is hand entry. Phase 2 hand entry is very important because that sets you up for a deeper catch and push under your body. So you want to make sure the catch precedes the pull, the push. And if you catch too early, you're going to pull too early, and you're going to drop your arm, and you're going to drop your elbow. And not pull. You want to pull, push your palm of your hand past your hip. In your case, when you breathe, you're kind of throwing your hand out of the way, and your hand all of a sudden is pulling wide. You're not pulling center. You want to think about swimming over that black line, so you're pulling down the center of your body. And also, you're cutting your stroke short. You're not pushing, you're not maximizing that pull past your hip. Your arm's coming up a little bit short, not extending beyond your hip. So, quick review, breathing, keep half your face under the water, make sure you rotate to breathe, make sure you're always rotating, be aware that that hip rotation is driven by your underwater pull. You want to drive the pull with your, you want to drive the rotation with your pull. You want to kick from your quads and hip flexors so your legs don't sink. And that in turn will all provide better body balance, comfort, that'll help you breathe better. And then making sure you're doing some thumb slide drills to maintain that high elbow recovery so you're not pulling wide. And then in turn, leading with your elbow, you will have a nice hand fingertip wrist, elbow, hand entry, which will set you up nicely for a catch and push underneath your body past your hip. So hopefully this all helps. I had mentioned, we had talked about how when you breathe, you're dropping that arm. So that's a body balance issue. So hopefully when you fix the body balance issue, you're not going to drop that arm. Usually, I'm sure in your case, when you're turning your head to breathe, you're pushing up to lift your head up to breathe versus having that arm extended when you breathe to help with body balance. So I'm sure once you think about rotating to breathe and not lifting to breathe, that should take care of itself. The problem with dropping your arm when you breathe too early is when you're inhaling and your arm is either pushed down or falling down, by the time you put your head back in the water, your arm is down here. So you're rotating to inhale, your arm falls, you turn your head back down to exhale and your arm is way down here. That's going to lessen the amount of power you have behind your pole. So if you have any questions, let me know. I know this is kind of a lot. And I hope to see you in the pool so we can do an in-person analysis. Would be great. Talk to you soon. Bye.